is the global chaos. A biblical prophecy or a biblical programming by the world masters. The air we breathe today carries more than just oxygen and the residues of a collapsing civilization. It carries an invisible weight, a frequency of strangeness that you, in the depths of your being, have already begun to decode. We look at our screens, at the streets, and at the skies, and the sensation is that time is not just passing, but being drained into a narrow funnel where all possibilities converge toward a single breaking point. It is here that the great question rises like a monolith before our collective ignorance. Are we facing the inexorable fulfillment of millennial prophecies written by divine fingers on scrolls of fire? Or are we being led step by a technical script, a cold programming executed by human hands that self-proclaim as the architects of our reality? To understand the chaos, we must first abandon the safety of easy answers. If the world seems to be following a biblical script, we must question whether this script is the destination of the soul or the instruction manual for a frequency prison. Many kneel before the chaos, seeing in wars, plagues, and digital control the confirmation that the apocalypse is a force of spiritual nature, something no one can stop. This is the vision of prophecy, where the Creator left a map of the end, and we are merely passengers watching the seals being broken. It is a vision that brings a somber comfort, as it removes the responsibility for the disaster from human hands. But if we look closer through the lens of technological dystopia, a much more sinister shadow emerges. What if the Bible is not just predicting the future, but being used to manufacture it? Imagine for a moment that those who hold the keys to the economy, surveillance, and genetic manipulation know biblical archetypes better than any theologian. Imagine that they do not fear prophecy, they emulate it. They create scarcity to simulate famine, they ignite conflict to simulate Armageddon, and they implement digital branding to simulate the beast. In this scenario, what we call the end times would not be a divine event, but a work of global social engineering. A biblical programming running on an operating system called Earth, where the ultimate goal is not salvation, but the absolute domestication of human consciousness through sacred fear. Here lies the danger of both paths. If you blindly believe in prophecy, you become passive, waiting for a savior, while the system devours your autonomy. If you believe only in the programming of the world masters, you become a nihilist, a prisoner of endless conspiracy theories, losing your connection to the sacred. But what I want to present to you today is the third vision, the one that remains hidden between the lines of the text and the system's code. This vision suggests that reality is a battlefield of frequencies where prophecy and programming are just two sides of the same coin used to buy your attention and your energy. The third vision reveals that the true chaos is not in the outside world, but in the fragmentation of your perception. The world is in a trance. On one side, religious dogmatism waiting for fire from heaven. On the other, technocratic materialism building a paradise of silicon. Both are paths of control. The masters of the world, these architects of the visible, use biblical language because it is the source code of the Western collective unconscious. They know that if they can make the world look exactly like ancient texts described, humanity will surrender without a fight, believing they are struggling against the inevitable. They are not just governing nations, they are harvesting the consent of souls through the recognition of fear patterns. When you see technology tracking every thought and transaction, your brain, trained by biblical culture, shouts, "It is the prophecy." And in that shout, you accept fatality. But the third vision whispers something different. You are the observer who gives power to these symbols. The chaos is real, but your interpretation of it defines whether you are a slave to the script or a sovereign of your own consciousness. The Bible, in this dystopian perspective, becomes a hyper-object, something so vast it shapes the very structure of time. Whether it is a prophecy of the spirit or a programming by the elite might be a poorly formulated question. The hidden truth is that it functions as a self-fulfilling prophecy. By believing in it as destiny, we feed it with our collective expectation, allowing the system's engineers to use it as the mold for our future cage. They are asleep in their arrogance as gods of clay, believing they can dominate the spirit through code and the liturgy of fear. They operate in the shadows, using chaos as a mist to hide the construction of a new order that is not divine at all, but purely mathematical. It is a dictatorship of algorithms dressed in the robes of the apocalypse. But awakening begins when you stop choosing between prophecy and programming. Awakening is the recognition that chaos is the necessary demolition tool for something new, or something very ancient and forgotten to emerge. The masters of the world can program the scenery, manipulate the economy, and even distort sacred texts to serve their purposes, but they cannot program the original spark that resides in the silence of your soul. This spark is what original texts called gnosis, direct knowledge that requires no intermediaries, no temples, and no screens. The third vision is the understanding that we are in a transition period where the old world is dying of its own falsehood, and the new world is trying to be born through your courage to see the invisible. Do not be deceived by the spectacle of chaos. Wars are loud, so you cannot hear the sound of your own intuition. Surveillance is omnipresent, so you forget that true freedom has no digital footprint. The dystopian narrative we live in is a stress test for consciousness. Those who remain stuck on the surface of the title, prophecy or programming, will continue to be tossed back and forth like boats in a storm. Those who dive into the third vision understand that the biblical script is an invitation to transcendence, not submission. If the world is becoming a biblical dystopia, it is so that you finally realize you do not belong to this system, that your origin predates the code and outlasts the end of all empires. The invitation that chaos offers us today is to withdraw our projections. Stop giving your power to the Antichrist of geopolitics, and stop waiting for a rapture to remove you from the responsibility of being human. Awakening is now, in the middle of the mud, in the middle of the confusion of tongues of a new digital Babel. Programming only works if you are predictable. Prophecy only fulfills itself if you are passive. The moment you become unpredictable through your spiritual sovereignty and active through your mental clarity, the script begins to fail. The world masters fear the unpredictable. They fear the one who looks at chaos and sees not the end, but the fertile void where true creation begins. We are living through the closing of a great astrological and symbolic cycle. Eras are colliding. Technology is attempting to simulate divine omniscience, while humanity is losing its ancestral wisdom. This is the enigma of the zodiac, the dystopia of the soul that has forgotten who it is. But you, who have come this far in this narrative, are no longer the same person who began. You now carry the seed of the third vision. You know that chaos is a language, and whoever learns to read this language is no longer controlled by it. The world may be following a plan, but that plan has cracks, and it is through these cracks that the light of hidden truth penetrates. Do not look for salvation in the news, nor seek condemnation in books. Look at the space between thoughts. There, where neither prophecy reaches nor programming can enter, is the answer you seek. Chaos is the master that forces us to let go of certainties so that we may finally learn to fly in uncertainty. The dystopian Bible is being written every second by our choices, our fears, and above all, our silence. Let this video be the end of your silence and the beginning of your vision. For when the observer wakes up, the script loses its meaning, for they never owned anything but their own illusions of control. The end is not the end. The end is merely the veil being torn so that the real may finally appear. Stay alert. Time is short, but eternity is now. And in the third vision, there is no fear. Only the absolute understanding that the game is about to change, and you, finally, have understood the rules. +1.